Perfect. Yep, I just heard. Um, hi everyone. I sent out the agenda uh, to Mr. Tate. I forgot to send out the reminder email, but he also mentioned the state fair updates. I was just going to go ahead and say, Dr. If the people for from the GIS Corps are here, I'm not sure of their names. If they want to get started with their presentation, we can kind of table everything else for later, I would say, just because I want to respect their time as well.
That sounds
Um,
great to me. So
all right.
so I'll go ahead and introduce our guest tonight. Super excited to have with us Sam and Meredith. These are two GIS professionals, actually with some unique, and so their skills are not exactly the same. They come with some different perspectives, different background, different expertise. Uh, and so I'm excited that they're working together to present just some helpful tips for you to make your maps informative and beautiful. This is the second year that we partnered with GISCorps on this effort, which will culminate with your printed maps hanging in the Esri Map Gallery on Monday night of the Esri conference. So we're super excited for you to have this opportunity to learn from some GIS professionals, learn some tips and tricks that can make your maps even better. After their presentation tonight, we'll be dividing you up into a couple of groups and then assigning you some times to actually meet one-on-one with Meredith and with Sam. And so then they're going, so just real quick, so here's kind of the rundown. You're going to get this helpful information tonight. You're going to have a few weeks to take that information, incorporate it into your maps. Then you're going to send your maps to them. They're going to meet with you one-on-one and do some additional coaching, feedback, getting them even a little bit better. And then after those meetings, you're going to send me your final map to get printed to take to San Diego. So with all of that quick rundown, I'm going to turn it over to Sam and Meredith.
Thank you so much, Thomas. We really appreciate your warm welcome and introduction. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time tonight and everyone who's going to be watching the recording. My name is Samantha. I'll let Meredith introduce herself really quick as well. I'm located in Wisconsin. I work for the state of Wisconsin in the Public Service Commission as the Federal Program GIS Analyst. And Meredith, do you want to introduce yourself before we get started?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. My name is Meredith Loudon. I am in New Jersey and I work for a small engineering firm as a GIS analyst, working with utility companies, mostly doing GIS consulting.
Right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to share my screen here and we can get started. So we decided to, let's make this full screen so everyone can see. All right, so we decided to do a story map. Is everyone seeing my screen all right?
Yes. Should be good, Sam.
Great. Wonderful. So because, last year, the presentation, it was very informative and it was a PowerPoint. We decided, since there will be several people actually creating story maps for this project, that we would create a story map. Two, one, we just love how story maps present themselves. Obviously, we're a bit biased. And also just to show you what they can do. So here we go. GISCorps, I titled this The Road to the Esri UC. I just think that's really exciting. Those of you who are going to be there in person or just checking it out virtually, it's a great conference. It's definitely a huge high point for all of us GIS professionals who attend and watch virtually every year. And don't mind the date here. It didn't update. So we'll scroll down here. I want to make this a little bit engaging. So if you guys feel like coming off mute, if you want to engage a little bit with us, that's wonderful. For those of you who are watching the recording, I just encourage you to take the questions that we ask you during this presentation and think about them on your own time. I think it'll be a really good exercise for building your own maps. All right, so we wanted to start out giving you a bit of context for what is cartography? Why do we do what we do, and where did it start out? Right, so I kind of have a bit of a palette cleanser here. This is a screenshot of one of our maps at the Public Service Commission. This is one of our public web maps that we have, and it's showing a couple of different kinds of symbology. And it's a way to start looking at what symbology is doing, what it's telling us. So we can see we have a dark base map here, we have purple, we have blue, we're using what's called firefly symbology for those points. We have a bright yellow line skirting through here. We're starting to just think about what the colors mean, how our base maps let those colors shine through. All right, so the road so far. What is cartography and why is it important? So here I'm going to show you, it's a lot of information here. So this is a plat it's a parcel plat from 1936. And this is showing us a section of Macomb County, Alabama. And the reason I'm showing this to you is because a lot of GIS work is done with land records. So that's parcel information, parcel ownership, etc. When you own property, local, municipal, and county governments have to keep track of that information. So here we're seeing where we kind of started out, right? This is an older survey plat. It shows the ownership information just by handwritten information on these plats and a bit more information on the side. And then we're seeing this really nice, gorgeous north arrow here. I think even though it's very simple, it's a great representation of showing data very concisely and very clearly. And the reason I chose this was a bit selfish. This is actually the plat of the first land my family owned after slavery. So if you look closely, you might not be able to see it. Some of these parcels right here in the dead center, what we call nadir in GIS, by the way, are actual my family's plats. So that's it's fun to be able to dig into land records and be able to find things like that. Oop, sorry, I don't know why it keeps doing that. It wants to skip ahead. All right. So here's another screen image I took of a NOAA plat. And this is showing another slightly older form of map. And this is a nautical chart. And you'll see lots of little numbers on here. This is showing Lake Michigan and the town we're seeing right here is Racine Harbor. I used to work for the city of Racine, so it's near and dear to my heart. I also used to do maritime mapping with the Department of Defense. So this is showing, it's very clean. It's very well drawn out, very well thought out. This is for safe navigation for sailors, both in our major navigable waterways and also, on the coast and across the globe. So you're seeing soundings. Every single one of these little purple dots here are showing you all the lights, the buoys and beacons. Every time you see a lighthouse, every time you see a beacon, every time you see those lights flashing, what color they are, that's all information that's imparted right here on this physical map. Nowadays, we take these physical maps and we put them into the digital world, but this is where it started out. And to this day, sailors still use physical hard copy maps for navigation. All right, Meredith, want to take us into modern cartography?
Yeah, so modern cartography and GIS. So there's some questions that we always ask ourselves as GIS analysts, as GIS professionals, and it's really like when you're looking at your data. So you're trying to look at the what, where, when, and who. So those questions come up a lot in science. So what is your data representing? Where did you source it? When is it from, and who updates it? So you want to know all these information, because when you're creating your map, if someone comes and asks you, hey, where did you get your data from? It's really important to know the source of your data. So another thing is, looking at your data cleanup and your quality control. So good cartography is going to have good data. So you don't want a map that has data all over the place, scattered points. Information is just not concise enough. So you want to know good cartography starts with good background data. You want to get to know your attribute tables well. And this will, help you have a good analysis, and it'll make it more fun when you're trying to visualize your data as well. I know as GIS professionals, we always come across issues when we're trying to visualize our data, and it's mostly because our data was not properly cleaned up and it was not properly organized from the beginning.
Great, thank you so much, Meredith. So now that we set the stage for modern cartography, we're going to get into web maps a little bit, since that's, again, it's going to be one of the deliverables that some of you guys are going to be creating. Here we're seeing the prompt screen, and we're showing a bit of functionality of story maps here, how you can nest in. I'm pulling this is a public web map that the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin that we have on our public-facing website. We're able to do story maps, as I'm sure you guys are already aware. You can pull maps in and web pages from other sources and interact with them right here. So we can click on this, interact, and go take me to the map if it wants to listen to me. Ooh, maybe it doesn't. Oh, it's making a liar out of it. Oh, there we go. It just took a while to load. And this is actually, it's a good segue into what I want to talk about here. So one of my coworkers, he's with Public Service Commission for 10 years. He was very responsible for building this whole web application. And you can already see, this is showing broadband data for the state of Wisconsin. And you can see that there's a lot of data in here. You can already tell by how hard my computer is working to even render this data. We're seeing hex bins. This is a type of symbology that's commonly used for broadband. So that's internet, also telecom data. And there are, gosh, probably several hundred layers in here that we have laid out, depending on your scale, right? So this is scale dependent symbology. We have hex bins out here, we have points in here, and it gives us a lot of information, but honestly, some of the feedback we get, and I'll be honest, me too, sometimes I get really daunted by looking at all of these data all at once. It's kind of a lot, right? You scroll down here, you have so many different layers and so many different groups. You can toggle on and off, which is great when you're looking for a general array of information, but it can be overwhelming. So there's a trade-off when you're building maps, right? You want it to be interactive, you want it to be accessible, but when do you know where to stop? And that's part of the art in the science of GIS. So we'll scroll down here, and I'll take you to another web map. This one I personally built. This is just a kind of a passion project web interface that I created showing a social vulnerability index from the CDC. So this data set is showing 16 different metrics in 4 major categories. And it's over the entire country. And if you'd like, after this presentation, we can maybe send some links and some resources to Thomas to distribute to you guys to poke around. But this one specifically is these colors you're seeing here is a bivariate color symbology. And we'll get into that a bit more later with one of Meredith's amazing maths that she did. But we're seeing bivariate color symbology here, and it's a lot of information still. Like I said, there's 16 different metrics going in to this symbology, but the way we were able to visualize this data allowed us to be able to visualize all of that information in a very clean, concise, interactive way that's still legible. So we'll scroll down a little bit here. This is just something I threw together, I think a couple of years ago. This is Lake Michigan. Again, I'm located in Wisconsin, so you see a little bias here, but these are all of the hydrography lines in Lake Michigan, and then that's it. But with one layer, you can tell a really great story just with your symbology. All right, Meredith, you want to take us into paper maps?
Yeah, sure. I think you're a little glitchy on my end, but I'm not sure if it's just me. So, all right, there we go. So paper maps. Paper maps are what a lot of you are going to be creating as part of your presentation at the UC. So we want to go over those as well. And again, there's some questions you want to ask yourself before you start anything. And those questions are: what story you're trying to tell? What is your goal? What questions are you answering with your analysis? and what do you want the audience to know? So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see this very, very simple reference map of Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania. I actually made this myself in grad school, and it has all the information that we're looking for when we're trying to create a reference map. So you can see that we have the regular map, we have an inset map onto the left, and that is showing the whole state of Pennsylvania. And if you were to zoom in, you would be able to see Philadelphia County is highlighted. We have a north arrow, which is always important on all of our paper maps. We have a scale, and then we have a legend, which is also, one of the major things that every map should always have a legend. And then a title. So without the title, we would have no idea what this map is even showing if you weren't familiar with Pennsylvania or Philadelphia. And then we have, notes and sources. So if you see on this map, you can see all the different colors is another way to use symbology, and those are showing all the different areas of Philadelphia County. So within Philadelphia County is the city of Philadelphia, which can get a little confusing. But then you can see, all the different major roadways. We have trails, we have major waterways, and parks. So I just had a lot of fun with this, making it look nice, having, some key features on there, and then all of our, required features for a map, which I said before, but I'll go over again. We want a title, we want a legend, we want a scale, and we want a north arrow. Those are all very important to have on our paper maps.
Great, thank you, Meredith. All right, I'm going to scroll down to, and again, I absolutely love Meredith's maps with the bivariate color symbology. Again, it's just a great way to visualize data. We'll scroll down a bit here. I know it's a bit hard to tell. It's a lot of information in a screenshot, because unfortunately you can't nest PDFs into story maps. Good thing to know. So this is a map I did for public distribution when I was working at the municipal level. This is just showing areas of safety for children in the city. And very similar to Meredith's map, you have your standard elements of cartography here. We have a scale bar at the bottom. We have our legend. We have our north arrow up here, a very clear defined title, so everyone knows what they're looking at. Very simple, easy to read symbology. And then just a bit of branding down here below. Alrighty, Meredith, you want to take us into the essentials once again?
Yeah, so the 6 essentials, as we went over before, when you have your map, so that's your data frame with your clean data. So in those other 2 maps we just showed, it would be the middle part of your map. You want to have your title. Without a title, we don't know what you're trying to show us. Your legend, your north arrow, your scale bar, and your credits/sources. Having a source is so important. And I can't stress that enough. As you get older and you do more maps, without sources, we're going to have no idea where you're getting your information.
That's a great point, Meredith. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I just wanted to interject that it's a great point. And also, when you're getting into data and data science, it's a really good thing to keep track of your sources, because sometimes, and very often actually, what will happen is that there can be a discrepancy in that data. You need to know where that data came from, where you got it, when it was last updated, like we covered at the beginning of this presentation, so that you can track down those errors. And it's something that, to do your due diligence and make your life easier down the road, if and when that does come up. Keep track of your sources, keep track of your data dictionaries, what your fields mean, what the data behind your layers mean. Yeah, all right. Sorry, Meredith.
No, you're good. No, it is so important. A lot of times you'll run into, I know when I was making that map of Philadelphia County, I was going all over the internet to find different data, and you'll find some areas where you'll find, hey, look, I found park data here and it was really good. But then you go to a different source and you find park data again, but it's better. and you have to keep track of where you're getting your data and which data you're using. So that's so important. So the next few pictures we have are kind of quote unquote bad maps. So we wanted you to look at these and again, ask yourselves like what could make this map better. So if we're looking at this first map here, I think it's pretty obvious what's going on with this map. And one of the first things that sticks out to me when I'm looking at this map is there's no title. So I see a legend on the left, but I have no idea what this data is trying to represent. So it's pretty much useless for the observer, for someone that's trying to go use this map for something. If you scroll down, so this second quote unquote bad map, it does have a title, but the thing that sticks out to us is the symbology. So the symbology here is just taking over the entire map. There's ways that you can work with your symbology in Esri, and you can make them smaller and still represent the appropriate size. So the other thing I would say with this map as well, probably could mess with the different color scheme a little bit and make it more visually appealing. That is something that I like doing a lot that I don't do in everyday profession, but making your maps visually appealing can be a lot of fun and it'll pay off in the end.
And we don't want to obscure entire states. Like, where did Arizona go?
Yeah.
We have no idea. Why are these, there's just little tips of the trade, like this labeling too. How can you shift your labels? You see Denver's all the way down in nearly Oklahoma here in Kansas. Cheyenne's in about the right place, but you start seeing those little things and it's very misleading. We want to be as accurate as possible. And there's a couple of tricks of the trade we could have done potentially to help this map along a little bit. One is using your labeling settings to make sure they're going to rest over your symbology here. But even with that, there's a giant hole here, right? So maybe, if your job was to fix this map, think about it that way. What would you do? Maybe add some transparency on here, like Meredith said, maybe play with your color ramps a little bit.
And then this one, there's a lot going on with this map. We would say that with this map, the colors are just too vibrant. There's too much color going on here. They did a good job, with their title, but the background is dark blue, probably isn't the best. And then the different color schemes. So Esri has a lot of different ways you can play. They have a lot of presets, I should say, with color schemes. And you can also, create your own, but I think and we'll get into colors in a little bit, but that's the big thing that sticks out to me on this map is the color scheme and how we could make that better. And then as far as, the background color of the map, using black or white is probably the best, but also considering when you're using a black background, if you're going to print that map, you don't want to use a black background. It's probably not going to print very nicely. So, thinking about that as well, if this is just going to be a solely digital map, if it's going to be a print version, those are all things to think about. And that goes back to, the questions we had a few slides above is like, what story you're trying to tell.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for this one too, again, this is also assuming a lot of knowledge on the part of whoever's looking at this map. So like, for example, Wisconsin seems mostly purple here, but I know there's a little tiny yellow spot in there that's for Racine County, and I just know that, or Milwaukee County rather, excuse me. I just know that because I know the area very well, but there's no state borders here. All right, we'll scroll down, and I just dropped in a couple of funny maps because I follow a lot of funny map distributors online, and I just thought this was funny. The shape of Australia, you know, the western side being the dog head, the eastern side being the cat head, and cat flew down in Tasmania. There used to be a show called Cat Dog several years ago. You may or may not have heard of it, but I thought that to be a little funny. Scroll down here too. This is from an account called Terrible Maps. Honestly, some of the most brilliant maps I've seen have come from this social media account. It says Chile rolled up for convenience. It's just a little play on scale too, because if you're mapping something that's very long, like the side of a continent, like Chile, it can be a bit difficult with scale. You can't get much detail. So I absolutely love that meme. I find it very funny.
Awesome. So like I said, there's different color options. So this is actually a link to a color palette generator, but there's a ton of free sources online that you can find, and you can find different color schemes, you can find different hex colors, and then you can also, in a lot of the different color palette generators, you can also do colors that were colorblind friendly, which is really interesting to do because you never know who your audience is going to be. So it's also always something to consider when you're making your maps. I couldn't find the exact color palette generator that I wanted to share with you, but if you just Google color palette generator, there's a bunch of different ones online. And then when you look at the colors and the hex colors, you can, translate that back over to Esri and put in those colors. They'll also give you different color schemes that are probably not in Esri, but can be important for, bivariate maps or just different symbology in general.
And those of you who are using ArcGIS Pro now, or who will be, you definitely will be in the future in your careers, ArcGIS Pro does have a colorblind friendly toggle option nested within it. So that's another helpful tool that's relatively new that we can use to make sure our maps are as accessible as possible to everybody. All right, we'll scroll down here. Meredith found this amazing story map. So we have a story map nested within a story map, like Inception here for you guys. The cool thing is, if you guys want to do that for yours, you can make them completely interactive within each other. So Meredith, do you want to speak on this really quickly?
Yeah, so there's a lot. This was just a really good source I found that I thought would be useful. We're not going to go through the whole thing, and we'll provide a link to this. But it kind of goes through ArcGIS Online, making maps, and this is some of where we got some of our sources. This is one of our source for making our story map tonight. And it goes into data and styling your maps. So there's a lot of good information. This is actually also made into a video on Esri's YouTube channel. So for those that aren't familiar, Esri has a ton of educational content that's free. And if you search anything on Google as far as, how to make a story map, you'll find a ton of information from Esri specifically with, different links, different tricks. That is the one benefit of Esri, is there's always good resources out there to help you if you run into an issue, if you run into, you're just trying to troubleshoot something to make it better. So this is one of the story maps that I found that they had put together.
All right, thank you so much, Meredith. And we'll make sure to send out a link to Thomas and distribute it to everybody for these different resources that we found for you guys that might help out. Now I want to get more into a little bit of an overarching review of symbology and how that works both in ArcGIS Pro as well as ArcGIS Online. So I took a few screenshots for you guys. We're going to start with ArcGIS Pro. So those of you who are going to be using Pro, this is what it looks like when you're in there and you're about to change the symbology of one of your layers. This is just a point layer. We happen to be looking at one of the tribal reservations here in Wisconsin, and just a point layer of all of the broadband serviceable locations. So that means every house, every residence that can receive internet in this area with a 2-mile buffer. So that's why you see it kind of cut off there. So when you go into Pro, you're going to go into your symbology tab and you're going to hit your gallery. So ARC already has a bunch of pre-made symbols for you. They're already colored. Obviously, don't just stick, if you don't want to, don't just stick to the default. And we're going to show you a little bit of how to customize that. So you scroll down in Pro, and you're able to customize obviously your colors, the shape of the point, the size of the point. You can also do outlines with different colors. You can also do halos, which is a great way to create dimension. And when I'm creating a map, I want to make sure that it's as easy to read as possible. So right now we have white points, we have a white polygon. That's not super easy to read, right? But obviously, like I said, we can change those colors. We can make it, let's say, yellow on a black background. If you don't have a black base map, if you have a light base map, that's going to be different, right? But another trick I use for symbology is, okay, I have yellow points, and for whatever reason, maybe you need to use a bright color. Use your outlines, use a dark outline, use a dark halo to help give it that contrast and help those features stand out. So we'll scroll down here to our GIS Online. Same principles, different format. So this is ArcGIS Online's map viewer. So this is the quote unquote new version. It's the standard version of what you'll be seeing in ArcGIS Online. And you have a similar amount of control, not an entirely identical amount of control in ArcGIS Online, but you still have a lot of options for changing your features, for creating outlines around your features, and obviously customizing your colors. So there's just some examples of what you can do. You can't choose as many shapes, but you can still choose a lot of different shapes for your points, line width for your polygons, etc. And it's okay to use your own sense of style. I want you guys to really make these maps your own. Don't think you have to copy something you've seen, like, oh, this person used these two colors. That's always a good idea. Follow your palettes, follow your color theory, but at the end of the day, put your own cartographic stamp on these maps. And I just added a couple of quotes at the bottom here that I wanted to read out to you guys. To put a city in a book, to put the world on one sheet of paper, maps are the most condensed humanized spaces of all. They make the landscape fit indoors, make us masters of sights we can't see and spaces we can't cover. And in the end, no matter how good and accurate and true our maps are, they will always and only ever be mere representations, pale reflections of a much grander, complex, and ever-changing reality. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have any questions that we can answer immediately? And like Sam said, don't feel like you have to copy things, but also feel like do some Google searches of like really just simple things like cool maps, and you'll find a lot of different ways to style your map. You can use their colors as ideas, but there's so many good resources out there. So don't let that, don't get stuck trying to figure out a better way to make your map.
Just because I'm curious, where do y'all get your paper maps, your more historical sort of maps?
Which ones specifically, the ones in this presentation, or just in general?
I meant in general, but like the ones in the presentation included.
Yeah, so I actually, for this one in particular, I actually reached out to the Cartographic Research Laboratory at the University of Alabama. And that was after an amazing search that it took a lot of my professional GIS skill to actually do. A lot of properties, a lot of municipalities, a lot of counties will have land records websites. So if you own a piece of property or you just want to see who owns a certain piece of property, most counties and municipalities will have that information publicly available. You can go and you can find out where those properties are. Also, there will be either historical societies, like I said, maybe a cartographic map library. We have one of those in Wisconsin here at UW-Madison, and also the University of Alabama, like I just mentioned. I actually contacted them, and fortunately enough for me, they keep great records of their historical plats and they're digitized. So they used to offer a service where they would print out the plats for you. Now they offered me just a really high resolution geotiff of this plat. So that's where I got this, and I was lucky to be able to reach out to her. But honestly, just doing some research online and poking around, going down to your local libraries, going to your university historical societies is going to do you a lot of favors there.
Awesome, thank you.
So I would love to hear from some of the students on the call. What did you see here that kind of captivated you, and maybe an idea that you want to incorporate into your story map and or your print poster? And then after that, I do have one follow-up question. And so that question is, you two did a great job presenting beautiful story maps and print maps. If you have a story map that you then want to make into a print map, like what are some suggestions for how to go about that? Because they're two very different presentations, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Sam?
Sure. What I did here, we actually ran into that yesterday because I was wondering, I've actually never made a hard copy version of a story map before, and I found out, at least with Esri, you do have the option to export to PDF, and you have some pretty good toggles there as far as how far you want to blow things up, how many pages you want to include, etc. But beyond that, it is hard when you have a lot of these interactive maps like this one nested within there. They're going to be a static image, right? So you really have to be selective as far as what you're representing in your story map and how that story comes across in print format. If you have access to Adobe, sometimes cartographers will use Adobe, like Adobe Illustrator, to make some more of those tweaks and those edits. But it's, as of right now, we really only have one really good option, and that's exporting to PDF.
Yeah, and I would say if you have a story map that you're trying to make into a paper map, making a copy of it, right? And tweaking it to what would make sense to be a paper map. So you could have a lot of information on your original story map, which is great, but you might not want to be, using all that information into a paper map. So going through and, using those questions again on like what story you're trying to tell with the paper map as opposed to what story you're trying to tell with the story map, because like Sam said, they're very different in the sense where, like we use story maps in this instance to show a presentation, whereas having a paper map is just solely to look at data. So those are just some of the things I would look at when you're trying to convert from one to the other.
Thank you very much. And so now, as I mentioned, I would love to hear from each of the students on the call. Again, what's one thing that kind of captivated you that you want to incorporate into your own story map or print map? Or maybe there's just an outstanding question that you have, something you're not sure of. Come on now, not everybody can be first. So who's going to go second?
Well, if you wouldn't mind, I actually do have one more question, if Dr. Ray will allow me. And that is, in ArcGIS Online, there are other stylistic sort of options like drop shadows and stuff where you can add visual effects. Do you know if those options are available in ArcGIS Pro? I know I saw the halo. Do you know if ArcGIS Online stylistic effects are available in ArcGIS Pro?
That's a really good question. To create a drop shadow effect, what I do is I tend to prefer halos. So if I wanted to do a drop shadow, I would do a halo with an offset because you can take all of your symbology and there's an offset setting. So you can make it, you know, slightly off and to the right, let's say, from all your points. There are some functionalities in online that aren't in Pro though. So that is something to keep in mind, and vice versa. I've noticed it the other way. You know, there's a lot more power in Pro than ArcGIS Online, but that's changing by the day. It truly is. So definitely keep in mind those differences, and that's a good thing to point out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if you're, if you're looking for a specific effect that you know is ArcGIS Online, stick with what you want to use, right? You don't need to use ArcGIS Pro if you don't want to. Try to, weigh that when you're trying to make your maps as well. Like if you know there's a bunch of effects or different ways you know how to do manipulate your data in online, stick with that. And weigh the pros and cons is basically what I'm getting at there.
I know you can import ArcGIS Online maps into Pro and vice versa, so I'll have to do some Google research and see if some of those effects can transfer over.
Yeah, that's also a good idea. You could always, if you're in Pro, you could always export to online and edit it there.
It does do some conversions, so just keep that in mind. Keep an eye out for that. And sometimes it'll let you know, sometimes it won't when it'll convert to the format that's better for online or vice versa for Pro.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So it looks like Shasharika had to drop off, but I would love to hear from Arjun, Brandon, Michael. Talk to us.
All right, so I had a question about the Michigan, Lake Michigan thing. I was wondering how you got it. It
This
seems
one
really cool.
or the NOAA map? Are you referring to this one, Michael? Or
No, the hydrothermic lines, I think it was.
oh, yeah. So I just, gosh, speaking of knowing where your sources are, I made this so many years ago. I don't actually remember where I sourced it. I'm sure some open data site. It might have even been ArcGIS Atlas. Yeah, I just found the hydrography lines. If you type in, and this might be good too, we could probably send them, Meredith, through Thomas, some open data sources, because there's several. There's humanitarian data, GIS data sites that I use. There's been various different sources for imagery, like satellite imagery that I've used too, that are all free and open source. So if you guys are interested, we can send you some of those links too. But it was one of those open data portal sites that I pulled those hydrography lines from. I just can't remember if it was NOAA itself or a different source.
Oh, all right, thank you.
And just to follow up on Michael's question, so after you had the lines, talk a little bit about how you did what were your artistic choices as you were going through just to symbolize the data this way? Like what was kind of your thought pattern and what got you there?
Yeah, thank you. It's really funny because this particular data set, probably from pulling the data down from the internet to symbolizing it, probably took me all of maybe 6 or 7 minutes when I did it. I actually was doing it for a badge background for my job. I wanted a cool picture, so I was like, I want to do hydrography lines because I've done maritime mapping. But yeah, I think you see a skew here in my maps to using dark base maps. I mean, one, it feels very cool. It's very matrixy. Also, I have really bad migraines, and that's another accessibility thing. It's really hard for me to stare at a bright map and a bright scene for that long. So I tend to skew towards the dark base maps. And when you're dealing with a dark base map, those lighter colors are going to pop. I have an affinity towards teals and lighter blues when I map, and also yellows when I'm mapping. And this kind of gets into that cartographic stamp that I mentioned. I found that every cartographer I've worked with tends to lean to a certain couple or a few colors, to the point when you get to know your coworkers well enough, you'll get to see their cartographic fingerprint, the colors that they tend to lean towards. And it's interesting. It's a really fun little Easter egg once you know where to look for it. And one of mine is teal, and I symbolized it with teal. It worked immediately, and really a lot of that, it looks like I did a lot of work on this, but honestly, it's just because those hydrography lines are so close. Just think like topography lines, elevation, just the opposite, right? They're so close together that the lightness of those lines blends together and makes this beautiful panorama. So a lot of it was just a happy accident, to be honest. And sometimes that's how I do a lot of my mapping, especially with symbology or getting into more web development in GIS. Honestly, you just kind of poke around, you'll throw some things in the map, and then it'll work and it'll be great. I just developed an experience builder platform, and that was kind of the workflow. I dropped in a bunch of widgets, I coded some functionalities, and then it was like, oh great, how'd you do that? I don't know, I was just up really late and it worked. So that's kind of my workflow.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And before Arjun or Brandon go, there was a question in the chat box on the Chile map from earlier. And I'm not sure exactly what the question is. Brandon, do you want to share the question itself?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, the one that's she's on right now. That's I'm sorry. I generally thought that was a GIS map. I'm realizing now that that's just a Twitter
Sorry,
post.
I should have made that more clear. Yeah, I was just having some fun with it. It's
Oh
interesting.
gosh, no, it's fine.
You get into this divide of data representation versus a true cartographic map. So at once we're telling you, okay, there's these rules. You have to have a legend. You have to have a scale bar. You have to have a north arrow. All of this stuff, which is true. But I think you can get to a point too where you start having fun with it as well, and that's what we're seeing here.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it's kind of an example of what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a fun. It's something that us geographers like to chuckle at. So if you type in terrible maps and look at their social media accounts, you see all sorts of like the fish map. If you've ever seen that, it happens to be my favorite projected coordinate system. It's just the entire world, but just oceans and just coastlines surrounding it. So yeah, I love stuff like that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that was my question. I thought your presentation was great. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, Brandon, you can think about this for another second, but was there anything in the presentation that captivated you that you think you might want to try to incorporate into your own work?
So okay, thanks for the question, Dr. A. I saw earlier there was something with, I think it looked like hotspots, like almost kind of like she was indexing. I couldn't really hear what she was saying because my audio has been kind of bad. But here, I think she's scrolling up to it actually. It was kind of like with little hexagons, I think. And it had like, there was a correlation with some factors.
Yes, the hex bins here.
Yes, I couldn't. So that was measuring broadband access, I think, and also like basically internet access, I believe, for different parts of Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we do at the Public Service Commission here in Wisconsin is we map every single place where there is internet access. So we pull that data down from the federal government and we manage it here at the state level. Right now, we have something called BEAD, which is Broadband Equity Access and Deployment. So we are deploying $1.055 billion and change dollars over the next several years to get at least 100 megabytes down, 20 up to every single person in the state, and every single state got funding from this federal program. So it's a huge push right now. You're going to be seeing a lot of talk about broadband. Definitely something to read up on and get familiar with. And it's honestly just a fun thing to work on because obviously a lot of us who work from home, go to school from home, we're on a teleconference right now. It's so important to have internet these days. We call it the fourth utility. So it's really great to be able to use our GIS skills to get internet to everybody for so many different purposes. So yeah, all these points are different houses.
Oh, that's cool. Actually, real quick question: the federal program you mentioned, was that like recent? I mean, I'm guessing like recent, like I guess rural broadband initiatives that the federal government's been pushing, or?
So there's many different grant programs, and it depends on their state programs and federal programs. BEAD is the biggest federal push for broadband that has ever happened. So it's like I said, it's $1 billion for just the state of Wisconsin, and every state got about $1 billion, I think, because the total award amount was 50 billion some odd for the whole country. So yeah, there's a ton of local programs. I deal with the federal side of things, but I also handle state side of things as well. So we have a lot of state programs as well that are smaller award amounts, like examples, capital projects, just laying middle mile fibers. And when you see those, have you ever seen those big spools of pipe, like usually orange pipe on the side of the road? What's happening right now across the country is everyone's laying fiber in the ground and setting up that infrastructure, just like back in the day when they did it for telephone lines, or they did it for electricity, or running water. It's a huge push right now. It's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, that answered my question. Thank you. Just once again, great presentation. Really appreciate everything. So I'll turn to Dr. Ray now.
Yeah, I'm going to ask one more question on your behalf, Brandon. So one thing that Brandon's working on is creating an index around livability or desirability, I guess, of places to live. And he's looking at a number of community level amenities and wanting to create an index of those. What he's kind of done so far is just done some hotspot mapping, looking at concentrations of amenities, density of amenities within communities. I'm just curious, have either of you done any kind of index, like creating indices type work like that? Or I know you brought it, you have the CDC social vulnerability index there, which obviously is also an index. Any ideas or recommendations for Brandon?
Yeah, Meredith, do you want to go first? I don't want to
Yes.
monopolize.
Yeah, so I haven't specifically done indexes, but I've done a lot like what Sam is showing here with bivariate maps. That is the easiest way to show data in like a very clean, concise, and visually appealing way, of like multiple sources. So I've done, related back to that Philadelphia County map, I did a lot of bivariate maps with it, to show different environmental contamination within different different areas of Philadelphia County. So I changed up the colors of these neighborhoods when I added more data. So you can play around with the bivariate maps very easily in Esri with multiple data sources. So if you have like 3 or 4, I did that a lot. Another thing I'm thinking of is like heat maps, which can be very useful, to show like areas with like dense populations. And then I'm not sure if Sam's child safety areas map would also be helpful for that as well, showing different buffers. So that would be some of my advice. I would obviously love to see the data itself, and I probably would have better idea of giving guidance and different ways to visualize the data once I saw what he had from the beginning.
Yeah, those are great points, Meredith. I also mentioned that if you're not familiar with the social vulnerability index, if you're not familiar with the social vulnerability index, I would highly recommend getting familiar with it, just as far as the theory of creating an index and dealing with the background data. It was interesting to me because this was actually one of the first times I've dealt with an index itself, especially at this scale. And when you're dealing with percentiles, obviously they're often by census tracts or census blocks. That's what you're seeing here. It can get a bit more complex, but I would definitely recommend getting familiar with the CDC ADSTR Social Vulnerability Index. Also, any food desert mapping that you've done or would like to do, or you want to see other people and what they've done. I had my intern a couple of years ago at a previous job do food desert mapping. So mapping all of the different community anchor institutions and also where to access food. And you can also get pretty myopic about it if you wanted to. Like we were thinking about doing it based on, to actually create a metric, doing it based on, for example, can you get, certain staples like a loaf of bread, diapers, produce, etc. there, and creating, that's a bit more myopic, but finding variables to create your metric off of. And if you look up this data set, and again, we can send some of the stuff out to you, you'll see all the different variables that go into it. It's amazing. It's everything from transit times to density of housing to, access to transportation, different education levels. It's very, very thorough. And one final thing I'll mention is I used this analysis tool when I was doing crime mapping, but it's called the dot density analysis. So you have heat maps can be useful, but they can paint a very general view. What I'd suggest is maybe playing around with some of your own analysis when it comes to a dot density analysis. And that's a tool that's available in Pro depending on your license. But with the dot density analysis, you can take a cluster of points and then find a midpoint between them. So for example, if you had a cluster of 10 points and they're all scattered around, it will find the geometric mean of those points, the spatial mean of those points, and tell you, for example, I did a mapping of where to place smart light poles. And I used our crime data to create where the best place would be to create, put a smart light pole. So just another suggestion as tools you can use.
That's all fantastic. Thank you so much. Samantha, some of the things you were saying around the food piece, Michael's work has been primarily in that food space. He's looked at the here in Wake County where food can be accessed through like food pantries, food hubs, things like that. And then he's done 15-minute walking buffers for those. And then he has looked at population without vehicles. So in trying to see where there was a density of population without vehicles, that and seeing if all that lined up, like are the highest areas or highest density of population without vehicles also in those walking zones. And he found a couple that they're not within walking distance. Any additional thoughts based on what I just quickly described?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would say that you could also do bivariate with that as well and look at so if you have your buffers, buffers like can be helpful sometimes, but if you're having multiple data sources with walking distance, like average walking distance, if you scroll up back to that bivariate map, you don't have a legend on that, right? No. So when you have a bivariate map, normally you'll have like a legend that will show like what these colors actually mean, right? So let's just, make our own legend, but the magenta could mean that there's, more access to food, but it's in a less walking distance, just to use that data. Whereas the light purple could mean I forget what I just said, but there's a shorter distance to food, a longer distance to food with shorter amount of food. So that can be helpful because the different colors will show you different meanings to your data. So if this bivariate had a legend, you would be able to see
So how
what that
would you
means.
set that up? Meredith, how would you set that up, given the fact that, here's what he knows. He knows where those locations of the food outlets are. He was able to also do those walking distances, 15-minute walk time to each of those locations. Did we do population density, Michael? I can't remember.
I think so.
So I think we looked at population density and then density of people without vehicles. I think we're starting to lose a
Yeah.
few people, so we might need we might need to wrap up
No,
soon. But
yeah, no. So like in Esri, when you're doing symbology from bivariate, you can pick your layers and you can look at it that way. Again, it's really hard for me to like visualize without like having my hands on it, and seeing the data, but you would want to make sure that you have specific columns within your data. So like your walking distance, you want to make sure there's a specific area that's giving you, high and lows. So when you do
the different
yeah,
metrics, so this
yeah,
has the household composition and disability, minority status, housing type, socioeconomic status. Those are all separate fields with their own values. The bivariate comes in where you can assign a different, it pops up when you're looking at it in Pro as an actual kind of like a box or a diamond. And it has different gradations of these colors depending on where they fall in. So you can do, and this is where it gets it requires a bit of reading up on statistics to truly understand what bivariate is doing. But you can do weighted scores. So you can make them weighted by population, for example. So if you had the population of each of these census tracts, that's actually what I did here is I weighted this all by population so that it would, it wouldn't skew the numbers and skew the visualizations.
great, thank you. And I know, so speaking of that, Brock, that touches a little bit on what you've done. You've done some bivariate data work. I can't remember which variables you were looking at. You were combining like what are areas that have hay farms?
Oh yeah. So that data is no longer being used because of the edits we made.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a bivariate data set I'm using, but the bivariate variables are pre-set up, so it's not like I can do it much more else with it.
Okay. Well, something we can definitely consider. So Arjun, what captivated you, and what do you think you might try to apply to some of your work?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how you were able to embed like the story maps into like your story maps. And I think that this would be kind of relevant to me because I'm kind of citing one of my story maps for my project, and it's kind of really closely related. I was just wondering, like in the embedded story map, are you able to interact with like the features of the embedded story map?
Yeah, you can interact with the embedded story map itself. Let's see if there's a map in here we can. Are you asking if you can interact with a map inside the story map that's inside the story map, or just the maps themselves? Because let's see. Let's find out.
Yeah, just like how like some story maps like you can just like click around the features of the map and things like that.
Yeah. So these nested maps that I have up here are completely functional. They're completely interactive. So if I go back up to one of these up here, I can zoom in, I can select features, etc. Like you're seeing the attributes behind that data there. I can zoom in. This is just a quick map I spun up. It's not even a web application. You can nest web applications in here too. So that's why you're not seeing the legend or anything. It's literally just the map itself, not an application wrapping around it. This is fully interactive. And as far as I think it would be a good test to pull in a story map that has more interactive maps. This one is kind of more general. To see if you can do that, double layer inception sort of interaction. But this is all pretty interactive. I think I could click on links in here if I wanted to.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's something I'll have to test.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely pressure test your stuff too, because I've run into that where you have all these amazing features, and then it comes time for a game day, and it's a bit wonky.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for presenting.
Of course.
Yes, thank you both. This has been fantastic, and we're excited to be able to share the recording with some students who weren't able to be here tonight. I just dropped into the chat kind of our timeline. And so you have about 3 weeks to get your maps ready, your draft maps ready. I'm going to call them draft maps because they're not going to be your final map. They're going to be your next iteration of it. And you're going to get those. I'll figure out, maybe even to some extent based on our conversations tonight, who will be assigned to Meredith and who will be assigned to Samantha. I'm thinking 4 or 5 of you will go to each. And then, so you're going to need to have those maps ready to get to them by May 27th. So again, that's about 3 weeks from today. Then they're going to take between May 27th and June 10th to be doing some serious review of your maps and kind of going through just some of the details of what they really like about them, some tips that they might have to make them even better. And so they're going to be preparing to have one-on-one meetings with you during the week of June 10th to 15th. And I say one-on-one, but in addition to you and one of our GISCorps volunteers, either Mr. Tate or Austin or myself will also be on those calls with you. And then after that, they're going to give you that feedback, and then you're going to have about 11 more days to do your final map. So that's where you're going to take all that feedback they've given you. You're going to do that one more round of edits and updates. And then the 26th, they have to get to me. And that's important because I have to turn around and get those maps printed so that we can have them in the map gallery. In the interim, as soon as the map gallery opens up, I'm going to need at least thumbnails. And it may already be open, but as soon as I go into register, I'm going to need thumbnails for each of your maps. I think I have to have a screenshot, but it doesn't have to be the final product whenever I request those. So just be ready to provide them when I request that. And then, of course, the July 15th, your maps will be on display in the map gallery as posters and or in the digital gallery as story maps. So we're really excited for this kind of capstone experience for the work that you've been doing this year. Super, super proud of all of your work. So all right, so our MC for tonight had to go ahead and drop off. He sent me a nice note in the direct message in the chat box. But any other urgent, because we are a little bit over time, any other urgent kind of last minute things that anybody needs to share as by way of announcements? We didn't really do state updates tonight, and that's fine. But any other announcements? So I do have one other note that I'm pretty sure Arjun and Brandon will be joining in person in San Diego. Brock, my understanding is you're not able to go. Is that correct?
No, I cannot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know. So we have a partnership with University of California in San Francisco. They have included us on a grant called Nourish, and they're doing some food security, entrepreneurial, food access kind of stuff with GIS, and they're partnering with basically this massive GIS lab at UC San Diego. And so guess what we get to do when we go to the Esri conference? On Tuesday, so the map gallery will be that Monday night. On Tuesday, we're going to get an opportunity to meet with the Nourish team at this cool data science GIS lab thing. And so that's going to be a pretty cool experience, but I want to make sure that's on your radar because that's going to be a lot of fun. So again, Meredith, Samantha, thank you so much for being here tonight and presenting. This was awesome. If you want to email me those links, I'll turn around and get that out to everybody on the team. I'll also share the recording out in that email, and I'll make sure you get a copy of the recording as well. And then I'll start working on getting the assignments together of who's going to be working with whom.
Perfect. Thank you
Awesome.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Great.
Thank
And
you all so much.
I'll probably be seeing a couple of you in San Diego, hoping to be out there as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's going to be so fun. All right, y'all. Have a good night. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Dr. I know